it! That is so fire.
Come on!
He ripped out his frets of a Fender Jazz bass, epoxied the fretboard.
He made his own fretless
Yes.
bass
Yeah.
from a Fender Jazz bass?
Yeah.
The forecast is jazz.
1, 2, 3,
Oh.
4, da, da, da,
Yeah.
da, 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 da.
That's why people danced.
Yeah.
It was because of the bass, not because of the kick drum.
Welcome to Professional Musicians React. We got a very special episode today. We are going to dig into some of the greatest bass lines of all time. Usually on Professional Musicians React, we talk about the whole song, we talk about production and vocal performance and instrumentation, orchestration. Today we are going to dive in on bass. And what better people to do that with than Nick Campbell and Sean Hurley. Also, Ryan's pretty great and has played bass with folks like Ben Folds. Nick has played bass with Pomplamoose, my band, Scary Pockets, my other band, but also with Charlie Puth and Michael Mayo and Megan Trainor. Sean has played bass with John Mayer and Alicia Keys, Rob Thomas, Annie Lennox, Selena Gomez, Alanis Morissette. The list is long.
Darren Criss.
Darren Criss.
Ryan Lerman.
We got some awesome bass players doing this with us today to review Nick's favorite bass lines of all time. All that and more today on Professional Musicians React. Okay, before we jump in, we need a song. Sometimes we do albums or artists. I want a recommendation for a song before we
a
jump in.
single song?
A single song that you think people at home might not know, but you've checked out the song recently, and it's an earworm. They gotta know this song.
I just listened to the new Halsey album that Trent Reznor
Oh,
and
is that
Atticus
good?
Ross produced, and it is really cool.
Our good friend, Rob Humphreys, called me the other day and said, did you know there's a new Beach Boys record out? Did you know that?
Really?
It's like unreleased. I mean, a lot of them were probably recorded here, actually, because I know 2020 was recorded here. Friends, I think, was recorded here.
There's peace in my mind.
In Valentine?
And Valentine.
Wow.
But there's a bunch of like never before released Beach Boys recordings from like the late 60s, early 70s. And I just listened to, I haven't had time to check it out, but I just listened to the first song and it's great.
There's an artist that I think is incredible that maybe people don't really know about. Her name is Gracie Abrams.
I'll be the love of your life inside your head when the night is over.
Cool.
Gracie Abrams. Okay, I'm gonna give you Sunday Morning by Margot.
Maroon 5.
No, no, Sunday Morning.
Sorry.
Sunday Morning by Margot, I think her name is Gurion.
Sunday morning, sun shining from your eyes.
60s singer-songwriter
Cool.
in the style of like Beatles kind of, Carole King kind of stuff, but wrote these great little pop songs that a lot of
Cool.
people don't know about. And the song's called Sunday Morning. It's a great song. I mean, really good composition. She's a special singer-songwriter, but kind of just
And
disappeared.
it's from the era? Like it
Oh,
was
yeah. No,
recorded?
it's
Okay.
like a 60s record. Wow. With that said, let's jump into these tracks here. We're going to start with Darling Dear, James Jamerson playing with Jackson 5. Here we go.
The game of love is such a beautiful game. If you've got time, little girl, I'd like to explain all the do's and don'ts, all the wills and wants. So lend an ear, darling dear.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
Sick.
crazy.
Can you
So
imagine
sick.
that song without Jamerson on it? I mean,
No.
it
It's
makes
not the same tune.
Yeah.
It's just so
It's mixed
groovy.
so loud. The bass is at the front of the mix.
There's an alternate mix too of that recording. I think it's called the stripped mix, where it's they take out everything except the bass, like tambourine and lead vocal, and it's so cool sounding.
Girl, I'd like to
Yeah.
explain all the do's and don'ts, all the wills and wants. So lend an ear, darling dear.
You know what's amazing is you still hear the full rhythm.
Yeah.
It's the pulse of the song. I mean, he can carry the whole thing by
It's
himself.
so bouncy.
And
Yes.
it's all structured around his voice. Like, and also, I mean, for cats who don't know about like how they've recorded a lot of this stuff, like Jamerson's improvising all of this stuff on the spot. So like the chords are written out in advance. Like normally the role of the bass player in a band is to like play the roots of the chord. But that serves this secondary role also to be kind of like a low-end counterpoint to the melody, almost like you'd see in like a Bach fugue or Bach chorale or something like that. But instead of it being all written out in advance, what Jamerson does is he's listening to what's going on around him and making it up on the spot. So this is all just like a single live take of him playing bass. And he also played bass with one finger. So he would go...
Because he played upright. It was jazz. I mean, this was a new instrument when he was doing it.
Yeah, so he would like, I know, let's see if I remember how to play the part, but instead of like, normally most bass players would be like, but he would do it like,
Pickup cover
Yeah.
on top. So you're playing in a different spot.
Wow.
and if you listen really closely, you can hear the little spaces in between each note because he has to like,
He always
reset.
played with the
right.
pickup cover on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he
That's
also
how it
had
was
the
sold.
the
mute in
yeah.
there. That
Right,
would be,
right.
Because
He had a mute at the edge of the guitar.
underneath the cover there
Yeah.
would be, like it's coming from the 50s car design. So you got a cover of the stuff that doesn't look so cool, the pickup and the bridge, and they were putting in stuff to make it not sustained because upright basses were what they were trying to sound like. And
Yeah.
if you let a string ring, it doesn't sound like an upright bass. It's too much sustain. It sounds more like a piano, so they put the foam in there. It would be glued, you would stick it to the top of the bridge cover.
When did the kick drum bass lock in start? Like,
I don't know, but
Yeah.
it was so wild, wild west, from Buddy Holly to Motown. The drums were not the dominant thing until who knows, I don't know, later 60s?
I feel, well, and even then, it's like if you listen to like early Led Zeppelin records, like it still sounds like this.
Treat me the way that you wanna do.
John Paul Jones was emulating, like if you listen to Ramble On,
Yeah.
he's trying to do that.
Yeah,
in
honorable
Ramble On.
mention, that didn't make the list out of 10 songs for me.
but even
sure it did.
but Jamerson's carrying he's still doubling the kick drum on the first two beats, right? He's doing doom doom.
Right.
Not always.
But then
But
everything
most of the time,
else.
Yeah.
Like here.
I like to explain
There.
all
There
the
again.
do's and don'ts, all
There
the
again.
wills and wants. So lend an
There again.
ear, darling dear.
But he did a
Right.
16th there.
He's often doing the 16ths, but he's definitely a lot of the time locking in with that
Yeah.
kick on 1-2.
Here's what is all so important about music. It's like the kick is consistent. So now Jamerson can have
Exactly.
the thing. It's not a free-for-all. It's if the drummer was going to behave that way, then Jamerson would
Yeah.
have to be the static guy.
And the thing
Someone's
that's
gotta be
interesting,
the
and
straight man.
it's not just, exactly, but in the Motown sound, everyone was the straight man except
Right.
Jamerson.
Except Jamerson.
Yeah, which is why it works. So there's very little improvising, and unless there's like a solo or something. But like, there were like 3 guitars, 2 drummers, percussion. That's all super
Scripted.
part.
Yeah.
What is freaking Nigel Hall always called it? He's a part police, full-on part police blast.
I'm part police in pockets.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a
Except for the bass. That comes from
Who,
Motown.
wait, so who was part police?
Nigel Hall. That's just what he calls it.
Did Barry Gordy like know what he had on his hand? Did he know that Jamerson was like his secret weapon?
Well, he kind of like Jamerson fell out of like fashion in the 70s. Like
Right. But even when guys, because at some point they ran out of gas, like they'd have to have
Yeah.
shifts because Motown got so big. So
Yeah.
Bob Babbitt
Babbitt.
learned how to play in the style
Yeah.
of Jamerson. The arrangers and composers started writing bass lines in the style of Jamerson because they were studying it too, like what makes this stuff great. So there are some songs where the Jamerson
sounds
part
like
was
him,
written
yeah.
for him because like, hey, this is what we like about you. All this chromaticism, all this
Yeah.
dancing. It's the reason it's a great study to learn his stuff is like every permutation of a 16th note with an 8th note or whatever. It's like it happens in pretty much every song. We're like,
yeah.
it's just a mathematic equation. How can you divvy up 4 beats with 16th notes, and he's going to play that rhythm somewhere in there.
And I think one of the reasons he's so foundational too is like that occurred at a moment, talking about locking in with the kick drum, like there's a big difference between locking in with a backbeat groove and a straight ahead swing groove. Like a lot of the stuff that Jamerson played happened in jazz music, but there's like a swing pulse, which is more of a triplet pulse. So all of that vocabulary is in that world, and you're locking with the ride cymbal time, not the kick drum.
No 2/4, no kick.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
Right.
in swing music, the kick drum's an accenting tool. The time is in the ride cymbal. Since this is coming directly from jazz music, we now, because people like make beats and stuff, and music has changed a lot, people lock into the kick drum. That's like the fundamental low tone. But that's not what that's not what music was like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
People would primarily lock into like the quarter note and the cymbal interaction. But really the quarter note, that was like the low end that was keeping the time.
Right. But a lot of it, the kick drum, the tuning was higher than the bass.
Right.
So the bass had the space of, and that's why people danced.
Yeah.
It was because of the bass, not because of the kick drum. And
Yeah.
only, and the fidelity of everything was like AM radio. There was no, you weren't getting full fidelity. So the bass, you could even hear, that's not, like you play a low E now through any modern amp and you get even more, I don't know, 40 hertz, 30 hertz, where that stuff, everything's squeezed and it bops. It kind of makes you, it does what the kick drum would do.
Yeah, when you
now.
think about a band in the 20s and what's going to project in a club without, amplification, it's like the bass is it. That's what people are going to feel and move to.
And it's also interesting, I mean, this is like probably an aside, but upright basses were set up really differently at that point in history than they are now, because people had to set up the action super high so they can project high volume.
Right.
And now most jazz bass players, they play through amps on gigs
Right.
still. It's not totally acoustic. That's not always true. And there's some people who are like, no, man, you got to set up your action high and get your projection happy. I don't really play upright bass, so I don't do any of that stuff. But there are a lot of cats who play with like lower action and play through amps. But that was like, it didn't exist at the time. So it was
Even
just different.
Jamerson played with higher action than is the modern equivalent.
Yeah.
And he was just,
Definitely.
because he had upright muscles that he could just
Yeah.
apply to this new instrument.
And also, I remember once I let Drew Taubenfeld borrow one of my Mulan P bass that had the period correct labella
50 to
like
110.
the super heavy ones, and it's harder. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to play. But the action wasn't crazy high, but it was difficult. And I gave it to him to let him borrow it. He was like, I don't think I can play that bass. This hurts my
Yeah.
hands.
The tension.
Yeah, it's so much tension on the neck.
Let's fast forward a little bit and go to Tower of Power.
Cool.
And we're going to go to, who are we going to, Nick?
Rocco Prestia.
We're going to Rocco Prestia in Tower of Power. The song is What Is Hip? Here we go.
So you wanna jump out your trick bag,
Sick.
ease on into hip bag.
Oh my
You
God.
ain't just exactly sure what's hip. Started to let your hair
Oh!
spin big bucks atop your wardrobe, but somehow you know there's much more to the trip. What is hip? Tell me.
Yeah.
Think you know what is hip? If you're really hip, the past and the years will show you in a hip trip. Maybe hipper than hip. What is hip?
Woo! Shit, that is so fire.
You became a part of the new breed. Been smoking only the best weed. Hanging out on the so-called hippie set. Been seen in all the
Oh,
right
that
places.
Yeah.
coming up right before it starts.
16.
Oh,
Should be satisfied, but still it ain't
Oh.
quite right. What is hip? Tell me. Think you know what is hip? If you're really hip, the past and the years will show you in a hip trip. Maybe hipper than hip. What is hip?
yes, yes. Gosh.
Oakland.
Classic.
Oakland.
Game show ending.
Exactly.
Wow.
Talk about stamina.
Talk
I
about
know.
16th notes.
And every song is
It's
like
like that.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's like the most iconic one. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine doing that for like an entire show. I mean, it's like the
Yeah.
opposite of Jamerson, right? He played
Right.
Jamerson's one finger. This is like 16th notes the entire time.
But there's so much detail in like the pushes and the note lengths and
Yeah.
where he leaves space.
Going back into the verses after the choruses,
Right.
there's that. Yeah, he
The little 16th
the
note thing.
16th note. He enters that line again right before the
Yeah.
downbeat, and it feels so good. Can
So
we listen to
good.
that one more time?
What is hip? Tell me,
There.
tell me.
All of the sections, the bass goes 16th note, sometimes low E, and then
Yeah.
picks up. Boom.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Da, 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 da. Yes.
I'm curious how you guys think about placement in terms of like where the center of the beat is and when you push and when you drag. And like, do you think of even just these two examples? Do you think of Jamerson as living on a certain place around, on, or around the beat versus?
It's certainly in Darling Deer and probably on a lot of stuff, he's on the front end
Yeah.
of it. It's definitely like there's an urgency. Even with Rocco, like it's definitely not laid back. It feels great, but
Yeah.
if you were to look at it, it's like this is going this
Yeah.
way the whole time.
There's
Yeah.
also too, these bass lines are both really busy, and the amount of density you have in a given bass line will often push it forward or lean it back. So like if you compare this to somebody like Pino Palladino or something who's sort of known for being able to like lay it way
Way
back,
back.
there's not like constant 16th notes going on the
But
whole time.
yeah, it doesn't work with this style of music because
can't.
the
You want
pulse
it to
is
push.
the groove.
And I
That's
think
what-
too the other thing about like time is it's like really all about like agreement between an ensemble. The thing that starts becoming different, I think, about this era of R&B music that's building off what happened in Motown is like the horns become a percussion instrument as much as
Yeah.
the rest of the band, and it all lines up with the way the bass voice leads the harmony. I think when it comes to placement of notes on the bass, when people talk about time, they talk a lot about placement. I think the release end of the note is just as important, and like
yeah.
you can often tell a lot about what a bass player is trying to do based on when they cut off their notes or how long they're sustaining them.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can't really have one without the other.
When you read the transients, you can kind of see it like a piece of music.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. That if it's a dotted quarter note, that means something versus like, oh, I played a note and I waited until next time I had to play a note.
Yeah.
So like, did you stop with the snare? Did you stop with somebody else's entering? Are you,
Yeah.
what part of the conversation are you speaking or listening?
That cutting off
Yeah.
at the snare drum can make something feel so funky. If the snare like chops the bass note, especially.
Yeah.
It
It also really matters with 16th note subdivision grooves like this. Like if, like it's something I've talked to like, people have asked me this question a lot about like, how do I get my 16th note stuff like funk together? And a lot of the time it's not about like where they're putting the notes, it's about when they're releasing them. They don't have an awareness about like if they're playing them long or short
Right.
or how they're muting them or any of that
Can you
stuff.
play us some differences of like,
Yeah.
you know, how you might play it versus like how some other people might play releases? on
Sure.
the
Well, it's like, you know, like if you just play 16th notes on the bass, right? Like
sounds like punk rock.
sounds like punk rock or
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But if you mute a little bit with your left hand,
This is using.
Now
if
you sound
you're-
like a
if
funk
you're
band.
fretting here, right? Then you're going to mute, so it's control of
and
your
so
left hand.
and controlling the articulation of the note with my left hand and changing the note length just a little bit. So instead of always bringing out, it feels like a little shorter and tighter, and it's easier to kind of position the syncopations where I want them. Like as the string wobbles really wide when you're going,
Very flea.
it's a little harder to play, you know, it's like, it's flat, it's big, takes up all this space, right? But if you go,
Ooh, that's so funky.
and then you leave it to the end of the phrase to let it open up. Like you want that awareness of it, not just like as a steadfast rule of like funk is short and rock is long. It's all about like developing a constant like awareness of your releases over time for specific music.
The biggest difference is you know the intention of like, okay,
Exactly.
you're not hitting a note and going, oh, I wonder how long this is going to last
Exactly,
for. You're like,
yeah.
This is what I'll do. That's why you play an instrument and then learn what it does. But different instruments, this is what was lost on me as a kid, is I had literally an Ibanez 5-string with a high C as I was reading my Jamerson book. 'cause
Mega Fusion.
This was 1990, and I wanted to play chords, and I wanted to learn all that I could. But also, it's like, oh yeah, Jamerson's the best. You got to check it out. Like, that's not the right bass to emulate that stuff. It was great for a sight reading exercise. It was great to fortify my musical knowledge, but I was never going to sound correct playing that.
Okay, should we listen to Jaco
Sure.
Pastorius on
Havana.
Yep.
Yeah.
Havana.
The shredding
This is the best, most musical fast solo ever recorded.
This might be the best bass solo ever recorded.
Sounds like there's a weather report about to happen.
Exactly.
It's stormy in Philadelphia.
The forecast is jazz.
It's gonna be raining notes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be raining parallel major chords, bro.
Wow.
Lydian, bro.
I gotta go.
This could be a shirtless drummer too.
Oh yeah.
Peter Erskine.
Yeah.
Actually, it's Alex Acuna
Oh,
on this
okay.
record.
Also sitting higher in the mix, like you were saying before.
Totally.
It's that nasally kind of woody bass.
He's from Jamerson and Rocco applied to jazz.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
That's
the lick.
insane!
Yep.
I mean, that is virtuosity at its most virtuosic.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah. And
Smell the
On a
cocaine.
fretless.
yeah, he popularized it. Like, I'm not sure if I think there were some fretless basses.
There must have been.
There must have been.
Conceptually, I don't even know if a manufacturer made them. But
Yeah.
he ripped out his frets of a Fender jazz bass, epoxied the fretboard so it has more attack, the transient.
Wait, he made his own fretless
Yes.
bass
Yeah.
from a Fender jazz bass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you take the bass and this is not at a time when it's like, oh yeah, I have a vintage 60s jazz bass, so I'm gonna honor it. He literally ripped the frets out with some pliers and then filled it with glue and then put epoxy on the fretboard to make it all
And
glassy.
I remember hearing the story in his documentary that like he had saved up because he started working like really young in Florida. He's from Fort Lauderdale, I think, before he became like Jaco. So he was like doing gigs when he was like 14 or 15. And he tried to get an upright bass so he could do jazz gigs, and the humidity in Florida destroyed it,
Right.
and he couldn't afford another one. So instead of getting that, he ripped the frets off his bass.
So that he could have the same access to, an upright bass where there are no frets.
Yeah, and you can like slide between notes.
So you get
Yeah.
all that kind of
And the
vocab.
vibrato, too.
That's
That's
only
yeah,
achievable on a fretless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It feels like it's sitting in the 100 to 300 range,
Yeah.
as opposed to the 30 to 60 range.
Yeah,
Like a
none
lot
of
of
that's
modern
there.
bass lives in that subdomain. This is all that woody, nasally kind of mid-range bass
and
tone.
the whole thing about like playing, like a lot of the time
That's
he would play
from
with,
where he plays it
Yeah.
on the actual instrument.
and he would like kind of have just the bridge pickup on the. You kind of get the nasally like.
yeah.
And if you play by pivoting off of it, that's when you get it, the string is tauter, and that's the tone you get. And the closer to the neck you get, it gets woodier.
So he played
and
up high on the neck.
that's thicker, and it gets thinner, but
Yeah.
you can hear it more. It's like in the articulation, it's at its highest when you're down by the bridge.
When there's that moment where the piano doubles the bass,
Yeah,
it's like, because it's a melodic part, not
Yeah.
a bass
Yeah.
part.
And actually, Jocko wrote this tune, so he wrote that for himself and the piano player.
There you go.
But yeah, he wants that stuff to speak. And one of the things about, I mean, a lot of people imitate Jaco Pastorius and have since he kind of came on the scene. But something I think that he has that the people who imitate him tend to lack is that like sense of singable clarity in his improvisation. Like if you slow down all his lines, the melody, the way the melody relates to the harmony is crystal clear. It's like not random fast
He's not just
notes.
Doing finger
Exactly.
exercises.
It's
on
not
the
shapes.
bass.
He's singing everything that he's doing. It's just happening really fast, and he has so much clarity that he can do it at that
High
tempo.
tempos, yeah.
But it's still, if you slow it down, he's saying a lot of the great jazz improvisers, they all have this. When they add density, if you slow it all down, it's singable stuff. It's like real stuff that they're actually hearing in real time. It's not just like a pattern that they memorize. And in the
do-
bass lines, you can hear that too.
Right. You
listen.
hear, once you get into it, I realize, oh, he's got a thing he does on a 7th chord, and he pivots off the 6 and the 5,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, I've heard it in every song that he's played. But when you're young and you're just being assaulted with this flurry of notes, you can't make sense of it. And like, oh, but he's got a vocabulary just like anybody else.
Yeah.
It's got a range.
The thing that's cool about his vocabulary is like an improviser. I mean, this is a great example because like the main section of the tune, it's like almost all major chords. It's like then one minor chord, then and then sus blast, and then
Yeah.
A lot of nines in there too.
And so the thing that's cool about it is like, unlike Charlie Parker, who is, and he comes from this background, but everything is like super chromatic. And actually, one of the other really famous Jaco recordings is him playing Donna Lee, right? Like, it's like super bebop, super chromatic. And Jaco has all that stuff, but the thing that's cool, especially this tune, is you can play pentatonic patterns over all of these chords, and they all work.
And
So
he
you can
does
play-
a
and he
lot
does,
of them.
like,
Yeah.
I'll take just a minute of that.
Yeah.
actually. Just with the face and everything. It's
Loop it.
Well, dude, it's all on ScottsBassLessons.com. This is basically all the shit I stole from this tune.
Should we take
But-
some questions from the Discord and from patrons here, specifically for you guys, specifically about bass? These are questions from the YouTube community. Sorry, not from our Discord. This is from the Professional Musicians React YouTube community.
Lovely.
This is the first time we asked the community for questions. We got a bunch of questions from folks watching at home, so thank you for the questions. This is from Monotone, not Mono Neon, but Monotone.
One singular tone, though.
Yeah. And it's mixed in mono, not stereo. Right.
Asking folks to talk about how these bassists have drastically different right-hand positions between Jaco and
Oh, we actually kind of talked about that over the course of it, but
there's like the one finger.
yeah, and Jamerson, because of the covers, always played by the neck, pretty much.
It's kind of those three are exhibits A, B, and C,
Yeah.
where Jamerson up here because of the covers here, so he's playing here. I would imagine, I think Rocco played here
That's
because
where-
he's pivoting.
And that's where it feels good to play
Right.
on a P bass in
I
general.
think when you first get a bass, it's like, okay, anchor your thumb here and start playing. And then Jaco would have a pickup here, and he's playing over here.
Jock always rested on the bridge pickup. Yeah,
He rested on the rested his thumb on the bridge pickup.
Yeah, it would be back here.
yeah.
On the bottom note like that?
Well, it's easier to show on a bass with two pickups, so like,
Even though it's not a real bass.
even though it's not
Yeah.
a real bass, it's just my toy, but he
Yeah.
would do it like,
And that's what gives him that nasally, woody kind of sound.
Only
Yep.
one way to get it,
yeah.
to play
and,
it there.
And it's his thing about it was so iconic. Like everybody who plays a P bass just sounds like they're playing a P bass, like in a good way. And that's why most of this, even though I have this stupid bass, I'm just kidding. It's the best bass. That's
love
why.
that bass.
That's why there's Reddit threads about it. Nobody knows what it is. Ha 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 ha. But that's
I know
why-
what it is.
Yeah, I told. I mean,
If you
Yeah,
pay
I
me
was
enough,
there.
I'll
yeah,
tell you.
yeah, Sean knows. I mean, but
sworn.
you guys are my real
Right.
friends. I don't want strangers to know. But-
Okay, here's our next question from Sahil Madan. Sahil Madan. These artist songs are truly great and stood the test of time. Would love to hear artists you believe do a good job of representing the instrument today.
Ooh, man. I mean, there are a lot.
There are a lot.
It's mostly the two of us.
Yeah.
Right. present company excluded, there are still many, 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 many great bass players.
I mean, you both mentioned Pino several
Yeah,
times.
Pino. I mean,
Yeah,
I put Tim LaFave on that list.
Totally.
Is someone who's like expanded the way people play the electric bass. Pino for sure. I mean, Pino, I think, is up. It's a bummer we're only doing 3 today because it's like if there was a 4th, it would definitely be Pino in terms of the way people play now.
Let's do our lightning round,
Cool.
and then and that'll
What's a
take
lightning
us out
round?
here. Lightning
Is that
round
even
of-
faster?
Yeah.
It's factoids, fast factoids,
Okay.
and questions.
Okay, sick.
We're gonna test your bass history knowledge.
I don't like. I didn't show up for a test, okay, bro. I was just
Okay.
trying to do some content with my friends.
Actually, it's not really testing your bass history knowledge. It's just content. Jamerson performed on 23 #1 hits on the pop charts, a record surpassed only by one other bassist.
Oh, I think it's Abe Laboriel, right?
I'm going to guess Lee Sklar.
So it's a little bit of a trick question. The bassist is Paul
Paul
McCartney,
Oh.
Okay, yeah, that is a trick question. That's bullshit.
who performed on 56 #1
Well,
hits.
it doesn't count if it's your own band.
Right. And
you're
if
the
you're
singer.
a lead
Yeah.
singer.
Doesn't count. Disqualified.
But what do you think of McCartney's bass playing?
I love
Beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. I mean, it has all the counterpoint stuff of Jamerson. It's just actually it's funny. I had to play Dear Prudence on a gig a couple weeks ago, and crazy that there are gigs again. But I listened to the original recording because I hadn't done it in a long time, and the way he chooses which notes to start ideas on is like totally it starts on the
It starts
fifth.
on the 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is like it, and then it goes. It's like it has the same chord, kind of like counterpoint Bach style.
Let me adjust my question slightly.
Yeah.
Because we all love McCartney melodies.
You're saying vocal melodies or bass melodies?
Any melody
Okay.
that comes out of McCartney's brain
Yeah.
is going to be genius. So let's take the melodies out for a second. I'm talking about his execution
I don't think
on
you
the
can.
bass
I don't think you can
instrument.
do that for him.
No?
No. His melodic voice on the instrument, the way he generates melodies, is a big part of why he's such a great bass
So
player.
you're answering the question. He is a great bass player. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Even in the early days where he was literally walking, close
Yeah.
your eyes, and
Yeah.
because you like that feels great. He's playing great bass, and there's a melody, even though it's all quarter notes. So you're limiting yourself, but it's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
what we love about the bass, even subconsciously, is it's the logic at the ground floor of all of these compositions. It is like they're all melodies. You know what I mean? Like Jamerson's melodic thing is insanely melodic. Like it's just like
Exactly.
a patchwork
It's-
quilt being woven as the song is going.
The thing that's cool about being a bass player is you do sit in that nexus of like you're fundamental to harmony and rhythm, which is obvious, but a lot of people don't realize that the bass is actually a melodic instrument primarily. And that's why all these great bass lines kind of they provide counterpoint to the melody, and without them, the songs aren't as good anymore.
Yeah.
And so for Paul McCartney specifically, like I think his bass playing was like a counterpoint to himself, and
Yeah.
taking out the melodic element from him is you can't really look at his bass playing without it.
Rocco Prescia credits one band member in particular with helping him achieve his sound. Who was it?
I do not know the answer to this question.
Drummer Dave Garibaldi.
Oh, that
I
makes
said
sense.
the wrong drummer
Yeah.
before, but David Garibaldi and him were like brothers, you know.
Who are some honorable mentions before we close it up here? Some honorable mentions who we didn't listen to today, but made your list of top 10 bass lines of all time. And then I want to hear some from Sean too. Before
Sure.
We close
I mean,
it out.
there's a lot. I mean, I don't remember what I put on my list. I was just like, fuck, I can't pick 10, so I'll just do random ones,
Right.
but I'll just say things I like. I'm pretty sure Talking Heads were on my list. I love Tina Weymouth a lot.
This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling.
I think her bass lines are super creative and really funky. Colin Greenwood from Radiohead was on my list.
Everything
I can't
is
remember who was
Everything,
on there.
the
Yeah.
live
Yeah,
Donny
exactly.
Hathaway record. That is a case study of how a bass solo can be given to just an R&B audience as
Yeah.
a marathon. He outplays everyone else that takes a solo. Like his solo is better than the guitar player, better
Yeah.
than everybody. It's just more musical.
I will say, in terms of honorable mention, both you guys are such legends. Two of my favorite. Let's not undersell the talent that we have here. Seriously,
Sure.
legendary voice on the instrument. Sean's pillowy thing that he does. It's just like sitting on the most comfortable couch. You know what I mean? When you're like, I've been blessed to play, as we both have, with, you know, these two guys. I feel like, Nick, your thing that you do
Sick, mate. Sick.
It's modal as fuck.
is
Nick.
modal as
Yeah.
fuck. And
Sussed
unique.
out,
Just
bro.
when in doubt, suss it out.
I truly think each of you guys have such a special, unique voice on the instrument. It's very
thanks,
cool
buddy.
to have you here.
And with that heartwarming note, we'll close it out today for Professional Musicians React. Thank you for watching. We come out with new episodes every week, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more just like this. We will see you next week on Professional Musicians React. Thank you. See you later.